Hey, this is John Young. Today we're going to be doing a little trimming of a apple tree right behind me here. This is the time of year. Basically, it's anywhere in that January, February time frame. Really want to do this before it starts to warm up. When you have that first warm spell, you get a few days in a row that are above freezing, you get some of these trees that start to have sap running, and that's pretty much the time where you don't want to be trimming and cutting and doing any damage to them. So ideally, somewhere in that January, February, we just had a super cold snap here in Minnesota, which most of you had. I want to catch it here, and then by next week, we're going to start to warm up, and this is going to be a great time for that. So in this tree, what I want to do is I want to basically eliminate some of these lower branches, and then make it so we have that upright, and then I'll be taking off a few smaller branches on the upright so it doesn't have as much weight. So for this year, we're not going to have much for apple production and such. There'll be some, but this is going to help it so it grows up, and then it will do more things at about a 6-foot height instead of right now. Once these branches get kind of weighted, they will kind of fall and be into the way of lawn mowing. And then you hit it with a lawnmower as they're down, and it's just not a good idea. So we're going to do that and get things taken care of with this tree. I'll be using 3 different devices. I've got a lopper here from Centurion. This one has a little ratchet capability, which will allow me to get into some branches and give it a little more torque. This will give me, I think, about 1.5 inches, somewhere in that ballpark. And I'll put links in the description below. Then when I get beyond that, Centurion has a little saw that I'm going to be using for trees. You can use a traditional hand saw that you see, that we learned in shop class. That's what they started us with. You can use that also, but a saw designed for this has a little more aggressive teeth, as you can see. And what it does is that it's a little wider, so it will, as you're cutting, it keeps that kerf, it's a little wider, so you can get the saw through. Otherwise, sometimes when you're using a traditional crosscut saw, you'll end up having it where it binds as you go through. So using the proper tool is kind of important. And finally, I brought this out with me if I need it or not. It's a little pruner here from Centurion. This one actually, I had opened it up, used it a little bit, and then put it back in its wrapper, so I had it all together. And of course, my dogs are out here helping me today, so this should be kind of a fun day. Beautiful weather here, a little foggy, which is kind of nice. Makes it kind of a unique day here in Minnesota. So I'm gonna get to work. I'm gonna take off our larger branches here and work my way up. Now, one of the things to a little concerned with is this branch is about 7 feet from this point up, but I want to take it off close to the collar here. The collar is basically where it attaches to the main trunk, and you'll see there's kind of a little growth ring around it. I need to come out from that a little bit, but I don't want to make my first cut here, because if I cut here, I might have it where it will kind of split and come down. And I could undercut. That's a possibility, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking some of the weight off up here, so then I don't have as much weight here, and that's just going to reduce the chance of problems. So the easiest way to do that, and having smaller pieces makes it a little easier for me to maneuver to the back area, is I'm just going to somewhat indiscriminately lop off a few of these branches. Now this one's a little tougher, so I can extend the handle, get those out there, and then I can use it to cut through. Now, instead of having this large, I've only got about a 3.5, maybe a 4-foot piece. So I could get in there with my saw, which is probably the direction I'm gonna need to go, because that was, yeah, that's about the extent of what my lopper can handle here. And it could get through it, but it was really difficult. So now we'll get to the saw, but I'm going to do a few more lopper cuts before we get to that. I'm going to come out here about 4 inches on this one. There's less chance of it splintering, but I want to come out 4 inches so then I can come in and make the cut close, but not into that collar. So I'm going to have problems. And then I'll do about 6 inches out on this one. And I'm going to take a few of these smaller ones, and again, these I'm pretty much doing in one pass. I want to stay about a 1/2 inch out, so I'm not hitting that collar, that growth collar. There we go. So I've got two major branches here that I'm going to need to cut, and I'll need to come back and hit these. I suppose I should do that before I go too far. This gives me a nice clean cut and very little damage. Now I've got the two here, but I'm going to reduce the weight. And that could be, I don't know if I'll be able to cut this one. Almost came right into your living room on that one. Okay, I think I'm ready to switch to the saw. Now, as I mentioned earlier with undercut, I could come through and start cutting like so. And what this would allow, and this is if you're doing larger branches, getting into a 6 to 8 inch branch on a tree, that undercut is really recommended. Doesn't matter the season, because then when I come and cut on top, if it breaks and comes down, it's not going to basically rip into the tree and rip the bark. So that undercut, whether I'm using a chainsaw or a smaller saw, is a good idea with the larger branches, just to protect the tree. In this case, I really won't need that. I'm going to come out about that 3/8 of an inch from that collar, and I can cut my way down. And there's one. Now some people will ask, do you put that black kind of tarry goop stuff, that tree sealant on this? You can. Some people do. I talked to a few local arborists and they're like, yeah, some people do it just because it makes them feel good. It's going to be kind of up to you. They've said it really doesn't do a ton to protect the tree. Pruning at the proper time of the year is more important. So I guess I would ask a local arborist, because if it's going to protect maybe from some bugs, if you're doing it at maybe a little farther into the year, it might be a good idea. If not, I haven't had anyone that I've talked to locally that said, oh my gosh, you need to do that. Although I kind of like to do it on some of the trees because it seems to seal them up a little bit. I think I'm going to take off this round of branches right here, that one and this one. And then after that, I think this tree is just about done. I'm going to do this one in two pieces here. I'm going to go out here, take that one down, and then I'm going to come in and get it to the final cut. And there we are. Okay, this tree is pretty much done. It's now a bush that goes up, and as I look up there at about 20 feet high, I'm gonna have to pick apples up there eventually. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Anyway, this is John Young here, using some Centurion tools to trim trees. This is the time to do it again in January and February. Make sure you do it when they're in dormant season, and you'll have trees that will last you a long time. Thanks for watching.
For more tips and how-to videos, go to weekendhandyman.com.